All right, well, we have a couple of topics this morning, so let's get right into it. One of them is a little bit about frustration, and the other topic's a little bit about hope. But as between the two of them, they're about the same thing. They're about Americans attacking problems and finding solutions, working together. In a few minutes, we want to launch the new life-saving smartphone application that we are about to tell you about, but we want to start today with an announcement concerning the Police Fire Pension Fund. Can you all hear me all right? Okay. The Police and Fire Pension is a commitment, as you all know, to those who have given their all to serve the community. Police officers and firefighters are, needless to say, the backbone of our public system safety and a critical part, perhaps the most critical part, of city government. They deserve a pension that pays them a fair and adequate income during their retirement years. The police fire pension has been adequately funded to meet the obligations. The city has to be adequately funded to meet the obligations that the city agreed to many years ago. Coming into the stock market crash of 2008, our pension fund was in great shape. The national recession and the stock market crash of 2008 created a large deficit in the plan's funding. It is a deficit that requires an increasing annual payment from the city. When I took office in 2007, the actuary that reviews the plan recommended an annual contribution of $4 million. Last year, a few short years later, that amount has climbed to $8.4 million, more than doubled. This year, the amount is over $9 million, and with the recent negative market activity, we can assume that the annual funding obligation will continue to grow significantly. To protect the interests of the public safety personnel who depend on the pension and the taxpayers who contribute to the fund, we need to thoroughly examine the pension's continued sustainability. That's why Councilman Trent Fellers came to me and suggested we appoint a committee of people with expertise in pensions to do exactly that. Today, Councilman Fellers and I are announcing the formation of this committee. We are extremely fortunate to have such a talented group of people who are willing to lend their expertise and recommend potential courses of action. Richard Evnen has agreed to chair the committee. Richard has deep roots in the Lincoln community. Many will remember his leadership in the business sector, where he ran Lincoln Poultry for a large number of years. The other committee members include Councilman Fellers, Kyle Colmorgan of Colmorgan Associates, Don Hers, a former director of the city's finance department, Lincoln Zayer of Hampton Enterprises, Gina Simpson of Emeritus, and Dan Marvin, a former member of the Lincoln City Council. What I've learned in my 8 years as mayor is that when we work together, there has not been a single challenge too big for us to overcome. I'm confident that with the guidance of the Pension Review Committee, we can find the right solutions and create a consensus that will allow us to make further progress on a financial issue that is very important to Lincoln's future. And I want to thank Councilman Fellers and ask him to come up at this particular point in time. I want to thank him again for his initiative on this matter and for his spirit of cooperation. I'm hoping he will add a few words to this beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank the mayor for partnering on this. This has been a good process. We put together a really great committee full of people that are invested in Lincoln, that want to see us do the right thing for our pensioners in the police and fire pension program. And right now we have all options on the table for looking at what we should do with this plan. And the people that are on there are committed to doing the right thing, looking at all the options and making a decision. Right now, we're at a point in time where the pension plan affects everything that we do in our budget. So if we want to have a better quality of life in our parks or street construction, you know, it's touching everything that we're doing in our budget, and the increase that we have to put in our budget is large every single year. So I just want to thank the mayor for putting this together. I don't know that we have necessarily a timetable of how we're going to put this, the solutions in front, but we have some good framework or when our meetings are going to begin at the end of this month, and we'll come forward with the solution after we meet and talk about it and come forward with the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Why don't we take questions on this part before we move on to the fun part? We have not set a timeline yet. We will ask them to go as quickly as possible. Certainly by the next budget session, we're hoping that we will have something to work on. Is that, you know, we haven't had a lot of talk about this, so is that?
We have an organizational meeting about the committee later this month. The first couple meetings are probably going to be kind of giving some history and structure of the police and fire pension, and then beyond there, probably talking about options and working to find a solution. I think if you set a timetable on when we are going to make a decision, it kind of might affect how we move forward in looking at problems. We want to get some research and some information on each of the solutions, and it may not just be one solution. It might be 2 or 3 small ones. It could be one big one. Like I said, all options are on the table at this point. Does that answer your question? Okay.
All right, if you're good on that one, we'll move forward. PulsePoint. Let me begin this part of the news conference by thanking all of the public safety staff from Lincoln's 911 Center and Lincoln Fire and Rescue who are here with us today in the leadership of these groups. We're pleased to officially launch what has been in other parts of the country, and I think will be here, a quite remarkable smartphone app called PulsePoint. We have many people in our community who are trained in cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR. PulsePoint connects those who are trained and willing to perform CPR with those who need CPR. PulsePoint is used in over 800 communities in the United States, but Lincoln is the first to implement it, not only in Nebraska, but in the 4-state area that includes Iowa, Kansas, and Missouri. As I said, PulsePoint is a life-saving application. If you search the internet for the terms PulsePoint saves, you will see the evidence of a growing number of incidents from around the country where PulsePoint-enabled citizens have helped save lives. PulsePoint is free. It does not require setting up an account or providing an email address. It does not ask you for personal information. There is nothing to sign up for. Just install the application and go through the easy setup process. PulsePoint works by sending an alert to your smartphone if a sudden cardiac arrest occurs in a public place within walking distance of your location, such as a church or a restaurant or a store. If you are willing and able to respond to that alert, PulsePoint will provide you with directions to the location where your skills and your caring may be needed and may be critical. In sudden cardiac arrest, we know that time makes a huge difference. The sooner a person receives CPR, the greater their chances of survival and recovery. And that's why we're pleased to bring this life-saving application to our community. And again, I appreciate the creativity and the passion and the hard work of our public safety personnel and the PulsePoint Foundation in making this a reality for Lincoln. And with that, I want to invite Fire Chief Tim Linke to tell us more about PulsePoint. I think there will be a couple of speakers who will give you more details after that, including Public Safety Chief Cassidy. So with that, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. We're very excited to be able to make PulsePoint available in Lincoln. This is a project that we've been working on for some time and has involved a lot of moving parts. We're thrilled to see these efforts come to fruition. Although it's still relatively new, PulsePoint is spreading throughout the country very rapidly. I hope that our example can encourage other agencies in the Midwest to explore the potential of PulsePoint, and we look forward to helping this innovation continue its already remarkable diffusion across the country. The idea from PulsePoint came from a personal experience of Richard Price, who was the chief of the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District in the San Francisco Bay Area. One day in 2009, Chief Price was picking up lunch at a deli when he heard the sound of sirens in the distance. Over the next few minutes, the sirens grew louder until one of his own fire engines pulled up in front of the deli. In the shop next door, a victim had suffered cardiac arrest. Had he known, he could have rendered aid. He even had an AED, or an automated external defibrillator, in the trunk of his car. PulsePoint is designed to connect potential rescuers to victims in cardiac arrest in the crucial minutes before first responders arrive, when life hangs in the balance and every moment counts. Every year, Lincoln Fire and Rescue responds to about 300 incidents of cardiac or respiratory arrest. While many times bystanders have initiated CPR, there are unfortunately some situations where this just isn't the case. There are many reasons. Sometimes people don't know what to do, they're frightened, or they're worried that they will do something wrong. If we can get someone to the patient quickly who is willing to do CPR, the likelihood of survival increases. While Lincoln Fire and Rescue responds to all of these, sometimes several minutes elapse before our EMTs and paramedics can get to the scene, and those minutes are absolutely critical. PulsePoint can help get CPR started quickly, and that means a greater chance that the victim survives. PulsePoint will not only provide the location of the emergency, but the app will also display the location of the nearest AED, or automated external defibrillator. If multiple citizens are there, someone can go for the AED while others continue chest compressions. Dr. Jason Kruger, who serves as our medical director, is here to tell you more about the importance of bystander CPR and its role in the continuum of care for cardiac arrest patients here in Lincoln. Dr. Kruger?
Thank you, Chief. Sudden cardiac arrest is a survivable disease. In Lincoln, we have one of the highest survival rates of any city in the country, based off of our high bystander CPR rates and our outstanding EMS system. The only things that are absolutely proven to save lives in sudden cardiac arrest are high-quality chest compressions and early defibrillation. If someone's in cardiac arrest, they have no blood going to their brain and no blood going through their heart. Unless there's chest compressions being done, really nothing good is happening for the patient. People need to understand that they can't hurt somebody in cardiac arrest by doing chest compressions. Chest compressions are critical in those minutes while our EMS crews are responding to double or triple the patient's chances of survival. Again, if someone is not doing chest compressions, no blood's going to the heart and no blood's going to the brain. It's absolutely critical that we have bystander CPR in order to increase our survival rates and give people the absolute best chance possible of walking out of the hospital alive. This PulsePoint application, I think, is outstanding at bringing awareness to this issue. These patients need early defibrillation, but it takes time for our crews to get there. And while someone is there in cardiac arrest, if chest compressions aren't being done, again, nothing good is happening for the patient. Our dispatchers do an outstanding job of giving instructions to people on how to do CPR, but the most critical aspect of that is chest compressions. And you don't need to be trained in CPR to do chest compressions and to save a life. But I would really encourage everybody to download this application and to be aware that we have to train thousands and thousands of people to do CPR to get one person that may actually be on scene when somebody's in cardiac arrest. This application, by notifying people close by in the area, really increases the chance that a patient will get CPR and increases the chance that that person will walk out of the hospital alive, that they'll go back to their families, go back to work, and spend time with their loved ones. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kruger. I'm Tom Cassidy, the Public Safety Director, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's going on under the hood with PulsePoint. PulsePoint's connected to our 911 Emergency Communications Center, and that connection allows these alerts to go out to users of PulsePoint. At the same time, those alerts are going out to the dispatcher who's going to send the units. As a result of that, sometimes these alerts will arrive on your smartphone even a few moments before the call is dispatched on the radio. It's very, very quick. Chief Linky and I have had this application on our smartphones for a few years since it was introduced. It's been remarkable to watch how it's grown so rapidly. And as Tim said, we're really pleased to be the first agency in this part of the country, this 4-state region, to implement the application. It has been a labor of love, and we've been looking forward to this day a great, great deal. We're very excited about it. It's taken a lot of work to do this. It wasn't nearly as easy as we're making it appear. And there are several people here that played a really important role in that I want to particularly thank for making PulsePoint a reality in Lincoln. Chief among which is Kelly DeVilla from our 911 Center and Julie Ryder, who is our communications coordinator of the 911 Center. Kelly's done a lot of work, including last night and early this morning, to help get us to this point, and really deserves a lot of thanks. As does Dennis Bryant, who helped us. He's an employee at our CAD, computer-aided dispatching vendor, Public Safety Systems Incorporated, and also Kimberly French, who is our coordinator at the PulsePoint Foundation. My hat is off to all these people who work so hard to make today a reality. Now, CPR alerts are the main purpose of PulsePoint, but it's got some other very interesting features that I think citizens will really appreciate. Users can click checkboxes within the app to sign up for other kinds of alerts, not just CPR alerts. So, for example, you can sign up for alerts about injury, traffic crashes, hazardous material incidents, structure fires. I found these to be very helpful, very interesting. I'm sure that the members of the media that have been using it during the soft launch have found that as well. And I think citizens are going to be somewhat amazed at the volume and variety of incidents that happen here in Lincoln, all of which are displayed on your smartphone in the PulsePoint application if it's something that Lincoln Fire and Rescue has responded to. In addition, you can listen to the radio feed for the public safety agencies, law enforcement, and fire and rescue within the app. There's a toggle that you can turn on and off if you want to listen to a few moments of that radio traffic. Again, I think citizens will be very interested in that. It's a stereo audio feed, so it has police on the left and fire on the right. No political implications to that, just the way it worked out. So if you use earbuds, or like me, if you like to listen to it by streaming it to the Bluetooth in your car stereo, you can really get both law enforcement and police on separate channels, and it's very interesting to listen to. We've got several other people that are here available today for interviews. I introduced Julie Ryder and Kelly DeVilla earlier, and Kelly and Julie would be more than happy to do more in-depth interviews with you. Our EMS division chief, Roger Bonine, is right behind me, and our on-duty EMS supervisor is roaming around here somewhere, Pete Eppens, who would make a good interview. A few other people that are more than happy to do one-on-one interviews with anyone that wants to. I'd especially like to tell you about one of our emergency services dispatchers who's here this morning, though, Mindy Streeter. Mindy was involved in an incident just 2 weeks ago where she gave CPR instructions over the telephone to a caller who had called 911 when an incident of cardiac arrest occurred in a hair salon. And our dispatchers do this several times during the year, where they deliver those instructions to citizens and help walk people through the simple steps that may be life-saving. And in this case, those steps were life-saving. The victim in this case survived. And I think it'll be very interesting for Mindy to tell you in a one-on-one interview about what that felt like for her. This wraps up our launch event. For our friends in the news media, however, we do have some other things for you upstairs in our conference room on the second floor. We've got a demo up there of hands-only CPR. We have PulsePoint running on a large monitor up there if you need some takeaways of that. And it'd probably be a good place for some of these one-on-one interviews if you're interested. I want to thank everyone for attending today, and I hope you'll help get the message out that PulsePoint saves lives. Thank you. Questions that we can address here in a group?
Die or that we save? We prefer to go by saves, about 20%. Yes, yes.
Do you remember, Julie? I'm going to have to give you a rough estimate. I think we paid a little over $30,000 to create the interface between our computer-aided dispatch system and PulsePoint. That's a one-time expense that we paid for with reappropriated funds from our budget. In other words, money that had not been spent in previous budget cycles. And in addition, we have an ongoing expense that's population-based. And with Lincoln's population, I think it'll be about $5,000 a year. I think Chief Lincoln mentioned that PulsePoint's in use by, I think it's over 1,000 agencies now. So a lot of communities around the United States have figured this is a small price to pay for the ongoing cost to make that opportunity for life-saving work by citizen rescuers. You want to address it?
The benefit of listening to fire calls? Well, fire and other incidents, we like that because our citizens can kind of get a little bit better idea of what type of activities we have during the day. We average probably around anywhere between 55 to 65 incidents in the entire city throughout the day. Everything from medical calls to structure fires, car fires, hazardous materials calls, and things like that. Sometimes the public isn't necessarily aware of all of these different services that we provide. Also, I know Director Cassidy has used some of the alerts on his PulsePoint app to kind of avoid some traffic snarls from traffic collisions and things like that as well. So it'll be pretty useful, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg as far as the application goes.
I do not. One of the things that PulsePoint does is it keeps information anonymous. So although we know how many people received alerts, we do not know how many people actually responded to that alert after receiving it. There are lots of news stories from around the country that are coming in now about saves that were enabled by PulsePoint, but that's only when a citizen who is directly involved in that is willing to talk about it. Otherwise, it's anonymous. I can tell you, we soft launched the application to a group of public safety employees back in early September. And since that time, we've had 6 alerts that have gone out, which means that there was a need for CPR in a public place that a PulsePoint user was within a quarter mile of. And I think those alerts have gone out to a total of 13 people. So we know that it's already creating some alerts, and I expect that volume will be pretty typical, probably 5 or 6 in a typical month. How long has it been in the works? 2 years? About 2 years? Well, we're consulting here. We think it's been about 2 years. So about 2 years since we first got interested in PulsePoint and contacted the foundation until today. Okay, lots of other opportunities upstairs. And again, thanks everyone for coming, and thanks to all the firefighters who helped get everything set up here.